everyone, welcome to Guitar Player Gear Demos and Home Recording Made Easy, both my two separate YouTube channels. This video is going to go on both of these channels this week around. This time around we're going to talk about guitar recording, guitars themselves, amplifiers. I got a lot of questions over the last month about what guitars I have, what kind of amplifiers I have, different reamping tools and guitar plug-in tools, etc., etc. And so I wanted to post this video on both channels because a lot of these questions came into Home Recording Made Easy, that YouTube channel, but because this is all guitar related, I'm going to post this on Guitar Player Gear Demos as well. So depending on where you watch this video, if you don't know, I have two YouTube channels. One is obviously Home Recording Made Easy. That one has been around now for a couple of years. If you're watching this video on Guitar Player Gear Demos, please head over to Home Recording Made Easy and subscribe to that YouTube channel. There's nearly 200 videos on that channel, all about recording, mixing, and mastering music in your home studio, which includes guitar. And if you're watching this on Home Recording Made Easy, please check out my new YouTube channel, Guitar Player Gear Demos, where it's a channel dedicated completely to guitar and us guitar players, everything from cool gear to cool gadgets and much, much more. We are now sitting on the new set of Guitar Player Gear Demos, and that's where this video is being shot from. So I have 5 questions this week talking about guitars and guitar related things, and I'm going to try to answer those for you. So if you want one of your questions answered in an upcoming video, please head over to my Facebook page, Home Recording Made Easy, and leave a comment, leave your question there, or you can also leave questions underneath this video, whether it's on my Home Recording Made Easy channel or my Guitar Player Gear Demos channel, and I'm going to gather up all the questions, and every couple of weeks to month, as I get enough questions, I'm going to do one of these videos to try to help all of my subscribers with all their questions around recording, guitar playing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we have 5 questions this week. I have them here on my trusty piece of paper, high tech, and I'm going to read them one at a time, and we're going to go through this and see if I can answer the questions that have come in most recently. So, question number 1. David, I see you have guitars in the background of your videos. What type of guitars do you own? That's a great question. I get that question a lot. In my past Q&A videos on Home Recording Made Easy, a lot of times I'll have guitars that have been sitting on guitar stands around my studio, because I'm usually shooting these videos between sessions and between client projects. So there's sometimes guitars in the background that don't even realize they're always there. But I get asked this question quite a bit since I've been doing the Q&A videos. What guitars do I have? So I'm going to show you quickly. You can see some sitting over here to the side of me, my guitars. I'm going to show you my collection. My collection has changed a lot over the last few years. And after the search, as a lot of guitar players do, buying and selling guitars, trying to find the guitars that kind of have spoken to me and the ones that feel most comfortable to me, and achieve the kind of tone and sound that I'm going for with the with my band and my personal projects and the music that I like to play. So right now I have a collection that I've kind of settled in on, and what you're going to find is I'm pretty much a humbucker, kind of a Les Paul Gibson type of a guy. But let's walk through the guitars one by one, shall we? So the first one here that I have, and this is a fairly new purchase. This is, and I'll hold it up to the camera. Hopefully you can get a good shot of this. You can see it in the video here. This is a Gibson ES335. This is a 2015 model and the cherry satin finish. This is a new acquisition. As I said, I just purchased this about a month ago, actually. I've always wanted a 335. I'm pretty much a Les Paul player, and I'll show you those in a second. And I've always wanted to get a 335, but 335s are typically always have been out of my price range. They always start around the high 2,000 mark into maybe the 3,000, low 3,000 mark when you buy them new. And when you buy them used, because they hold their value, if they're in good condition, they're typically, not much less than that. And it's always been a little bit out of my price range, but recently I was lucky enough to find on Reverb.com, the Chicago Music Exchange actually was selling a bunch of overstock 2015s for about $1,700. So I picked this up brand new, 2015 model, for $1,700. Now again, normally I've never seen an ES335, especially in brand new condition, for anything less than $2,500. Even the satin finish, which I guess is the least expensive of the finishes. Usually the glosser finishes are a little bit more money, but this is still easily a $2,200 to $2,500 guitar. I think the 2016 models are close to $3 grand. brand new. And I really like the satin finish. It gives it kind of a vintage kind of a feel to it. Really, really nice guitar. And so when I saw that deal on Reverb, I jumped out and I bought it, and I'm really happy that I did. It's got the Burstbucker Pro pickups, which is very same pickups that are in all the custom shop Les Pauls. It's got the 60s profile neck, which is not my favorite profile neck. I tend to like the 57s and 58 profile, a little bit thicker, but still a real comfortable guitar to play. Sounds much different than the Les Pauls that I own. And this was a great deal at the time, so I decided to go ahead and take the plunge and buy it, and I'm really happy that I did. So this is, again, a Gibson ES335 in satin red. The next guitar, I'll put this down here, is, again, actually a new purchase for me, and I'll tell you what this is in a second. This is a Mexican-made 2016 Fender Strat, obviously, in the tobacco sunburst, vintage burst, which is a really nice finish on this guitar. Rosewood fretboard. I believe this is the deluxe player edition, I think is the proper name. Here's the back, maple neck. This guitar I just bought about 2 weeks ago. I've barely played it. And as I said a few seconds ago, I'm primarily a Gibson and a Les Paul guy and a humbucker guy. I'm not a real big fan of the single coil kind of a sound. That's not my thing. But as I started Guitar Player Gear Demos, the new YouTube channel, I knew that I was going to be demoing pedals and amplifiers and a lot of guitar-related gear, and I just didn't want to do that with just a humbucker-style guitar because I felt that the audience would want to hear what it would sound like, pedals and amps and such, through a single-coil guitar, as you know, just as many players play Strats as they do Gibsons or humbucker-style guitars, right? So I said I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a real high-end custom Strat because, again, it's not really my thing, although I'm hoping that this is going to grow on me a little bit more. But this is a beautiful guitar at a great price, brand new, has the noiseless pickups with a cool switching system, beautiful looking guitar. And actually what I like about this guitar is, I don't know exactly what it weighs, but it's fairly heavy. When you put it on a strap and you sit it on your shoulder, it feels good, it feels comfortable. Love the back of the neck. It's got a nice satin finish, so it's a real smooth, comfortable neck to play. So this is a 2016 Fender Strat. I believe it's the Player Deluxe Edition with the big headstock with the noiseless pickups. So that's the Fender, and you'll be seeing this a lot on Guitar Player Gear Demos. As I'm demoing, as I said, pedals and amplifiers in the future, this will make an appearance in every one of those videos along with the humbucker style guitars. So that's the Fender. The next guitar I want to show you, this is one of my favorite guitars. I've had this one a while. This is a 2013 Gibson Les Paul Custom 1957 reissue. So it's an R7 gold top with the light colored back, not the dark colored back, which I prefer. Some of them have the black, or most of the new gold tops that you'll see too that are not the custom shop will have a dark black back. I tend to like the brown back myself. You can see the Gibson custom badge there over the over here, electronics cavity. And again, this is a 2013 model. I bought this used, but it was just about in brand new condition. There was only one little nick on the backside by the horn, but other than that, the guitar's was almost in mint condition. And I love the 1957 custom shop Les Pauls. I love the thicker neck. Love the Burstbucker Pro pickups, sound amazing. I'm a Les Paul guy. I've owned lots and lots of Les Pauls over the years. And anyone knows that plays a Les Paul or have owned a Les Paul, you know that sometimes you got to play a bunch of them to find ones that are good. And prior to the custom shop, I've always played, like, you know, typical Les Paul standards, Les Paul classics, you know, the $1,500 to $1,800 range with the 60s neck, and was never really thrilled with them. Some of them were difficult to play, some of them just didn't feel right. And I was really frustrated several years back because I always loved the way the Les Paul sounds, and I just never could seem to find one that really spoke to me, that felt good in my hands. And a friend of mine said, have you ever tried any of the custom shop, the reissues? And I said, no, I haven't. And they says, you know, you really ought to try that. So I went to a local store, and at the time I tried a 1958 Sunburst, an R8 from 2015, and it felt so much nicer than what I was used to with the lower, little more inexpensive models, the regular standards and the classic guitars. I know the neck profile is different, But something else about these custom shop models, the reissues, something about these guitars, I don't know. I know there's some construction differences, and I know there's a little bit more care to detail, a little bit more care to the construction, which is why they're, a lot more money. These, typically run around the $3,000 mark, or a little bit more new on the used market, maybe $2,600, $2,700. So that's about $1,000 to $1,500 more than a Les Paul Standard. And even a little more than that than a Les Paul Classic. But I gotta say, it's the best Les Paul I've ever played, and I love it. And I use this as my #1 guitar in my band. If you're a Les Paul person, or you think you want to be a Les Paul person, and you've never found the Les Paul that felt good to you, and you haven't tried the custom shop Les Pauls, there is a world of difference. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I urge you to try it. It worked for me, and I'm really happy with this. So again, this is an R7 from 2013. This is a gold top. Let's grab a couple more here. Oops. And on that same kind of note, again, loving that 57 so much, and loving the 58 that I talked about in the store. This is not that guitar, but this is a 1958 R8 2015. No, this is a 2014 Les Paul, obviously R8 1958 reissue, and the tobacco vintage burst here, or tobacco sunburst. More of a plain top, not too much flame on these. There's the back side of it. Again, weight-wise and feel very similar to the gold top. The neck is a little bit, little thinner neck than the 57, but much more thick than the 1960s neck, like on the 335. And again, this is my #2 guitar with my band. I play the gold top more, and this is like kind of a backup in case, live strings breaks, so on and so forth. And every now and again, I'll rotate this out. I bought this again about a year ago. I bought it used. Guitar doesn't have a scratch on it. It's a beautiful guitar. Again, the burst bucker pickup, same that's in the 57 reissue gold top. But on the 57, I failed to mention some of the, it's a lightly aged Les Paul, where the tailpiece and the bridge and the screws are a little bit rusty and a little bit aged looking on the gold top, where on this one it's not. On these are all brand new, shiny, nice and new components. But just a beautiful guitar again. Love the way the custom shop guitars feel. And so this is a 1958 reissue from 2014, the R8 and the vintage Sunburst. Cool. A couple more, and we'll move on to the next question. This is a new purchase for me. This is a Friedman vintage Telecaster style. These came out just recently. If anyone knows anything about Dave Friedman, he makes amazing amplifiers. As you can see, the amplifier, the Friedman behind me. And now he's also released a line of guitars, and he makes a Strat style, a Telecaster style, and I think he's going to be coming out with like a Charvel, maybe even a Les Paul-ish shape. This is the vintage Telecaster in the satin cherry red. This is kind of a relict version on some level. You can see some dings on the back. These are made by Grover Jackson by hand. These are all made by hand. These are limited amounts of these that are made. It's got a really nice, like kind of a sanded back neck. This guitar feels amazing. It's got two humbucker Motor City humbuckers, which are a little bit warmer than the burst buckers on the Les Paul, but they're a little bit lower output, I think, as well. But they just sound so good. They're so smooth through that Friedman. These things just sound great, and this is just a beautiful guitar to play. It feels like it's a million years old and that it's aged, even though it's a brand new guitar, and it feels really well, hangs on the body really well with the strap. It's well balanced, sounds great. This is just a beautiful guitar, and because these are limited quantities, I think over time these are just going to increase in value, but I really enjoy this guitar a lot. So as you can see, I'm pretty much a humbucker guy. These are very similar sounding to Les Pauls. The 335 sounds completely different, even though it's still got humbuckers in it. But this is a great guitar as well. So again, this is the Friedman Vintage T. This is a 2015 model, or maybe a 2016 model. Okay, and that's guitars. And then for recording in the studio, I have a bass. This is I think a 1997. This is a Fender P bass. I bought this used on eBay for like 600 bucks. It's in really good condition. It's really just for when I'm doing recording sessions and doing my own personal music and such. I have this as a maple fretboard. Just a standard, no mods, just a Fender P-Bass, plays great, you know, feels good, was inexpensive, sounds amazing in a recording. And that is my Fender P-Bass. And then I also have a couple of acoustics, which I didn't break out of the storage locker. I have a couple of Taylors. I have a 2015 615 series, and I also have a 2005 300 series, a 12-string, a jumbo body, which is nice, but I didn't break those out. So that is my guitar collection. And again, I'm really a humbucker kind of a Gibson guy. The Fender's a new acquisition for me, and again, I really bought that just for the Guitar Player Gear Demos website. I'm just a Les Paul Gibson into kind of a Marshall-y kind of a style amp with my Friedman, which I think is in one of the next questions we'll talk about in a minute. So those are my guitars. So thanks for asking. And again, I'm always buying and selling guitars, but these have been around, and these I think I'm going to hold on to. So let's move on to question number 2. So question number 2, what type of amp and cabinets do you use as well? So I've got the question with the guitar. So quickly, as you can see behind me, I play a Friedman. This is the new Friedman Runt 50 tube amp. There's a 50-watt head, you know, kind of a jacked up modern Marshall style head. If you know anything about Friedman amps, you know they make really high-end stuff. If you're looking for that British tone, where you can play them at reasonable volume levels, because I got a wicked master volume on here. These Friedmans are just very sought after. They're awesome guitars, or excuse me, awesome amplifiers. Prior to this, I had the Friedman Pink Taco, the PT20, and I sold that for this really for one main reason. When the Runt series came out, one is that the Runt series has a couple of things that the PT20 didn't have. Has a second channel, has a clean channel, like a Fenderish style clean on the Runt series, which is beautiful. The PT20 was just simply a single channel amp. And also on the Runt series, they have an amazing sounding XLR cab sim output for direct recording, which is the best I've ever heard. A lot of amplifiers these days have the XLR simulated output, so you can do direct recording or silent recording. And most of those, at least the ones that I've heard, I haven't heard them all certainly, but I've heard, you know, a few of them by different amp companies. And they don't typically sound all that great. There's usually a lot of post-processing that needs to be done with EQ and compression and such to make them sound good. The Friedman, right out of the gate, straight in, you really almost need no processing at all. Sounds amazing. Dave Friedman did a wonderful job developing that XLR cabinet simulator output, which is fantastic for recording or sending to the front of house in a live situation, so you don't need to mic up a cabinet on stage, which is fantastic. So those are the two main reasons why I bought the Runt 50 over the PT20. The PT20 was a great amp as well. As far as cabinets go, as you can see, I don't know if you can't really see it here, I'm out of the frame a little bit. This is a Bogner 212 cabinet, a sealed back, a closed back cabinet with two Celestion cream backs, a 65-watt cream backs, as opposed to what I used to use in a single 112. I was using the green backs. The cream backs handle more power. The Friedman is a little bit more power, being a 50-watt head, and it sounds great. The Bogner cabinet's kind of heavy. You know, it sounds like a 412 even though it's a 212. It's an oversized 212 cabinet. But when I go into small clubs and such, I bring a Friedman 112 cabinet, which has the same Celestion 65-watt cream back in it. I don't have that with me. It's with the acoustic guitars. So those are the two cabinets that I use. I've used like everybody else, I've used 412s with vintage 30s and greenbacks and such. And I find that the creamback is a much better sounding speaker to my ear. And I got tired of hauling around 412 cabinets. This 212 sounds like a 412 cabinet to me. And that's why I like it. And even the Friedman 112 sounds big and full. For a 112 cabinet, it sounds really, really great. And again, that's also a sealed back cabinet. So those are the amps and the cabinets that I use. Now, one of the questions I've gotten a few times as kind of a sidebar to this amp question, I used to have a Kemper Profiler, and if you go to the Home Recording Made Easy YouTube channel, I did an unboxing video of the Kemper, and in that video I talked about doing several Kemper videos and instructional videos, and I never really did that. And really what happened is, because I've been asked twice this week about that Kemper video and why I haven't done any videos yet, is simply I don't have it anymore. The Kemper was a fantastic For a digital profiler, or for, when you take Kemper Axe Effects and the Helix by Line 6 and you take that category of modelers, even though the profiler is a little different than a typical modeler, and I talk about that in the Kemper video, you can check it out if you want to know what I mean. As far as that kind of technology, the Kemper hands down was a fantastic sounding product, especially when you would use third-party profiles, specifically by Michael Britt and by Top Jimmy. And Chop Tones was the other place that I bought third-party profiles. The Marshall profiles, the Dumble profiles, the Fender profiles, they sounded amazing. The reason why I don't have that anymore simply is that it died on me. It died, it crapped out on me. Thankfully, I bought it from my favorite place, Sweetwater.com. I'm sure you know Sweetwater.com if you play guitar or in the recording industry. If you don't, I will certainly put the link in the description. That's where I buy 99% of all of my gear. The only thing I don't typically buy from Sweetwater will be guitars, because I usually buy them on the used market. But anything like amplifiers, or really anything that has any real expense to it, I want to buy it from Sweetwater, because when you have a problem like my Kemper just died on me, and they were just going to swap it out and give me a new one. But what I found was, as I was using the Kemper for 2 or 3 months, and again I really enjoyed the sounds, what I found was, for me personally, I only need 1 or 2 amp sounds. It sounds like a great idea to have any amp under the sun that you want, and if you have a whole amp collection in your home and you don't want to take those on the road with you, to be able to profile your amplifiers and have a box filled with every amp that you own and even amps that you'll never own is a wonderful thing if you're looking for lots of different multiple tones. If you want that big color palette, if you will, of amp sounds, the Kemper by far, hands down, is the best there is. What I found for me is I found myself using a lot of the Friedman profiles, a lot of the Marshall profiles, which are very similar in sound. And so I found that I only really used one or two tones. I had a Fenderish Clean profile and a Friedman, the BE100 profile. Those were my 2 favorite profiles. And I never found a need to switch away from that. That was for me personally. So when it died and Sweetwater was going to either exchange it or give me a credit to buy something else, at that time the Runt 50, the Friedman Runt line, had just come on the market. And I says, you know what, I think I'm going to try that, because I just felt like going back to a real tube amp was just something that I wanted to do. And there's a debate about profilers and modelers versus tube and vintage stuff and modern stuff, and this video is not about that debate. We'll do that in another video. But I can tell you that if the Kemper didn't, fall apart on me, and if I still had it and was still working, I would have kept it, because it was a fantastic tool. But also the Kemper, the powered head, which is what I had, that's a $3,000 investment. And then if you put the floorboard, the controller, which I had as well, which was really another excellent piece of gear, that's another $500. You're at like, $3,200 to $3,300 for the Kemper Profiler. To use it for 1 amp sound or 2 amp sounds. It seemed like it really didn't make sense. After using it for a while, I saw the potential of it and saw how great it was. But when I could get $3,200 or $3,300 back, and this was $1,800, and then I went out and bought 3 or 4 pedals, which is all I really used on my pedal board, I was way ahead of the game as far as money went. The one thing I did not like about the Kemper is I wasn't real thrilled with their reverbs and delays, and I didn't really like their stomp boxes all that much, but the amp profiles were really great. So to answer the questions that have come in about the Kemper, I don't have it anymore. It doesn't mean I didn't like it. It doesn't mean I don't think it's a wonderful technology. What I would say to you is, if you're someone who is looking for multiple amp tones, that really wants to have, the best of the Marshalls and the best of the Dumbles and the best of the Friedmans and all these other boutique amps and orange amplifiers, if you want to have 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 different amp tones at your disposal, or if you have a collection of amplifiers that you don't want to take out into a gigging, kind of a situation, because you want to keep the amps home where they're going to stay nice and, well kept, and you don't want to drag them out on the road, the Kemper, by far, hands down, best thing in the world. You can make that as simple or as complex of a product as you would like. There's a lot of deep editing and tweakability if you want to go that route, or it could be a simple plug and play unit. I would highly recommend it if you want more than 2 amp tones. The Kemper's the way to go. If you're like me and you just need a really good sound and you know what you like, and let's say you know, it's a Marshall tone, or if it's a Fender tone, or whatever it is, a high gain 5150 tone, whatever it is, but you're a one kind of a tone guy or gal, and maybe, or a two-tone guy or gal, then I would say to you, maybe the Kemper's a little bit overboard, and I would just stick with a really good tube amp and just use some pedals. So if you get a really good clean channel on your amp, like the Friedman or like a Fender, you can get, you know, pedals that, you know, amp in a box kind of things, which sound pretty damn close to the real amplifiers. I mean, the overdriven and the distortion boxes today sound really, 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 really good. I mean, take the Friedman BEOD pedal, which I have and we're going to do a demo on soon. That sounds as good as that BE100 to my ears. It's an amazing overdrive distortion pedal. So that's the story on the Kemper. That's the amplifiers that I use. If you have any more questions about that, you can leave it in the comment section. I'll try to reach out and help you. So let's move on to question number 3. Do you use any reamping? And if so, what kind of gear do I use to reamp guitars? Well, yes, I do. There's a couple of things that I use. Mostly what I find myself using these days when I do reamp guitars for clients when they send me stuff to mix, a lot of times today, to be totally honest, I'm using a lot of the UAD, the Universal Audio plugins. The Friedman collection, the Marshall collection, though for rock guitar, it almost doesn't get a whole lot better than that. I do have some radial reamping boxes. I don't have them with me here, where I can run the signal out of my DAW, out of my interface into something like the Friedman, and then bring it back in and reamp guitars that way. But today the plugins are getting so good that when I do need to reamp guitars, a lot of times I'm using those UA plugins. But I do have the radial. If you go to search Google Radial Engineering and check out some of their reamping boxes, you get a really good DI box and a really good reamping box. Pretty inexpensive, and you can then send your signal out of your DAW, out of your interface, in through any tube amp or solid state amp that you have, and then back in to your DAW, and you could reamp that way. But I tend to use plugins more than anything else, so hope that answers your question. Question number 4. When recording guitars, what type of microphones do you use? And do I use a 1 or a 2 microphone setup? And that's a great question. I get that question a lot over at the Home Recording Made Easy channel. It depends. Typically, I try to get away with using the tried and true SM57 in most cases, but depending on the style of music, depending on the amp that we're recording, the speaker cabinet that we're recording, the guitar that we're recording, the player that we're recording, depending on what we're going for sonic-wise, I may also put in a Royer 121 ribbon microphone, and then using the way to blend those two things together. Putting the SM57 more on the edge of the dust cap in the cone, so it's doesn't have that fizzly sound, but the 57 has that mid-range punch, excuse me. And then the Royer more center on to the speaker to give it more of that more round, mellow type of a sound. Now when you use a 2 mic setup, you have to make sure that you don't have any phase issues. And I have done videos, and you can search YouTube with other people that have done videos on how you check for that. But basically, you want to make sure that the capsule of the microphone on each one of those microphones is the same distance away from the speaker. So the sound coming out of the speaker hits those microphones as close to the same exact time as possible, so you don't get any phase problems. That's the only trick when using 2 microphones, to make sure that your phase is correct. But so it's typically a 57 on its own, and if we feel we need it, I'll use a Royer 121. I also have a Sennheiser 421 that I use from time to time, but those are typically the 3 mics. And again, always try to do it with 1 if I can, but 50% of the time maybe I'll use the 2 mics, and that's how I do it. Last question here. Question number 5. What advice do you have when recording guitars to achieve a wall of sound without sounding muddy? I get that question an awful lot as well. There's a few things you can do to get that big kind of guitar sound, and I have a couple of 4 or 5 tips here that you can try. The first thing that I tell people when I'm recording guitar players in my studio, especially if it's a high gain or a rock sound or a metal sound, is the first thing I do is turn the gain dial on the amplifier down to probably 50% of what the guitar player set it up at. The amount of gain that you need when you play live, then that you need when you record, are completely different. So because we're going to layer, and that'll be my next point, layering multiple guitar tracks, I like to turn the gain down to about 50% of what it normally would be if I was just playing with that one single guitar in the room in a live situation. That'll keep the sound, would give it a lot more clarity when you start layering guitars and things don't get muddy. When you have too much gain, it tends to get really muddy, you lose a lot of note clarity, and it's hard to distinguish really what's kind of going on. So less gain is better in most cases, especially when you talk about rock and heavy rock style guitars. The other thing, as I just touched upon, was doing double tracking of guitars. So again, if you have a rhythm guitar playing that part, maybe then panning it hard left and then playing that same part again and panning it hard right as a second take. I do not take one guitar take and copy and paste it in my DAW. You always want to play the part twice and play as tightly as you can to the first part. You'll never be exact, and those little nuances and subtle differences between the two takes is what gives it that full sound. Okay, so double tracking guitars. Sometimes I'll even quadruple the guitars. Never really any more than that, but 2 guitar parts or 4 guitar parts, spreading them left and right will make a much larger and a bigger guitar sound. You know, the perceived sound of that guitar will be much bigger, much thicker, that big wall of sound. The other thing you can try is, excuse me, is not only doing the double tracking of guitars, but also doing different pickup configurations on the guitar, or different guitars themselves. So let's say you're playing a Les Paul through a Marshall and you want that Les Paul Marshall kind of a sound. Maybe one guitar track is on the bridge pickup, the other guitar track is on the neck pickup. Again, different subtlety differences in tone, the frequencies are different, it sounds different. When you blend those together, it gives it a much bigger feel. So different pickup configurations, different guitars. Maybe you're using a Les Paul on the left channel and a Fender Strat on the right, or a Les Paul and a Paul Reed Smith, or whatever the case is, or humbucker in a single coil. You get the idea. Switch it up, excuse me again, more variety. When you blend those together, bigger perceived sounds. Use different amplifiers if you have it. Maybe you have a Marshall, again, Marshall Les Paul, and then maybe you have a Fender Strat, or you know, an Orange and a Paul Reed Smith, or some kind of combination of mixing different amps and different guitars. So you get the point. By mixing the guitars, by mixing the amplifiers, by mixing the pickup configurations, those different sounds, even though they're similar, when you blend them all together, especially when you pan them hard left and right, you are going to have a much larger guitar sound. And again, use less gain. And also with EQ, be really careful with the EQ. A lot of times guitar players put way too much low end in their EQ when they're playing live. They crank up the bass or crank up the resonance knob. Back off that bass, back off the resonance. Use a high pass filter. Anything below 100 Hertz you don't need on an electric guitar, especially a distorted electric guitar. So those are some tips on how you get a much bigger guitar sound. Again, any more questions, leave them below. And that is it for this week's Q&A. Again, thank you so much for watching on both Home Recording Made Easy and Guitar Player Gear Demos. Both those YouTube channels are going hand in hand, and we have lots of subscribers on each. And I urge, regardless of where you're watching this, please go over to the other channel and subscribe and check out those videos. And again, if you want more questions answered and more Q&A videos, please go out to my Facebook page at Home Recording Made Easy. Leave your question there. You can also leave them beneath these videos in the comment section. I will be sure to gather them all up and every so often do one of these question and answer videos. So until next time, this has been David Vignola with Guitar Player Gear Demos, as well as Home Recording Made Easy. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much again for the thumbs up on the videos, and I will speak to you guys all soon. Take care.